You think abandoned places are empty. But sometimes, they're not. Tonight, Ayaan enters an apartment that should have been forgotten. What he finds inside will make you question reality itself. Stay with me till the end. If you dare. It was midnight, the city streets completely silent, except for the occasional distant hum of a streetlight. Ayaan, a young, ambitious photographer, had always been drawn to forgotten places, seeking the perfect shots that captured the eerie beauty of decay. Tonight, he found himself at the outskirts of the city, staring at a crumbling, abandoned apartment building, its windows shattered and walls covered in peeling paint and dark stains. The air was unnaturally cold, sending chills down his spine, and a faint wind whistled through the broken frames. Despite the unsettling atmosphere, curiosity pushed him forward. The moment he touched the rusty doorknob and pushed the door open, a heavy silence enveloped him. Inside, the apartment smelled of damp wood and decay, thick dust coating every surface. But as he stepped in, the door slammed shut behind him, locking on its own. Panic prickled at the edges of his mind. It shouldn't have been possible, this building had been abandoned for decades. He shined his flashlight across the room, revealing broken furniture and shadows that seemed to move just out of sight. The first whispers brushed against his ears, faint and chilling, as if the building itself was asking, "Why are you here?" Ayaan's heart pounded. What started as an adventure was quickly becoming a night of pure terror. Ayaan cautiously stepped further into the abandoned apartment, his flashlight cutting through the thick darkness. Dust swirled with each step, coating his shoes and making the air heavy and musty. Broken furniture littered the rooms, chairs overturned, tables splintered, and drawers pulled open as if someone had ransacked the place decades ago. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the faint creak of the wooden floor under his weight. As he moved down a narrow hallway, his light caught strange, carved symbols on the walls. The markings were jagged and irregular, some glowing faintly in the beam of his flashlight, pulsing as though alive. Ayaan leaned closer, his curiosity battling the unease curling in his stomach. There was something unnatural about these symbols, an energy that made the hairs on his neck stand on end. He turned to leave the hallway, but the door he had entered from would not budge. Panic began to rise. The apartment seemed larger than it had at first glance, the hallways stretching impossibly, twisting in ways that defied logic. Then came the whispers, faint at first, almost indistinguishable from the wind. But soon they grew louder, clear, and unnerving. "Why are you here?" The voice hissed, echoing around the room, as if the walls themselves were alive. Ayaan froze. Something unseen was watching him, and it did not want him there. Ayaan's heart pounded as he moved deeper into the apartment. Shadows danced along the cracked walls, flickering with every sweep of his flashlight. The air had grown colder, icy fingers brushing against his skin, and a faint smell of decay filled his nose. He froze when he noticed a dark figure in the corner of the room. At first, it seemed like a trick of the light, a shadow cast by broken furniture. But the figure didn't move like a shadow, it loomed unnaturally, solid and still, yet alive. He swallowed hard, trying to convince himself it was his imagination. The figure remained motionless, faceless, yet somehow its presence was suffocating. Panic surged. Ayaan turned to leave, but the apartment had changed. The hallway he had just walked down now twisted impossibly, stretching and bending, trapping him in a maze that shouldn't exist. He glanced into a broken mirror nearby, expecting only to see his reflection. Instead, he saw someone standing directly behind him, their silhouette dark and still. Whipping around, there was nothing. His flashlight flickered, and the figure reappeared in the shadows, closer this time, moving with impossible silence. Ayaan's breath quickened. He realized with a chill that he was not alone, and whatever was in the apartment was aware of him, watching, waiting, and drawing closer with every heartbeat. The dim light of Ayaan's flashlight flickered violently as he stepped into a larger room. Suddenly, a pale figure emerged from the shadows, a woman in torn, wet-looking clothes, her long, matted hair hanging over a ghostly, pale face. Her hollow black eyes locked onto Ayaan, sending a chill racing through his body. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but his feet felt glued to the dusty floor. The walls around him began to ooze black liquid, dripping like blood and filling the room with a metallic, rotting stench. The air became heavy, suffocating, as though the apartment itself was alive, responding to her presence. Her long, bony fingers stretched toward him with unnatural speed, each movement jerky and inhuman. She whispered his name in a voice that was both feminine and grotesquely distorted, echoing off the walls, "Ayaan." Ayaan's mind raced. This was no ordinary ghost. She was a trapped spirit, ancient and malevolent, feeding on fear and capable of bending reality inside the apartment. The shadows around her writhed and twisted as if she controlled them, reaching for him. Every instinct screamed terror. For the first time, Ayaan realized, he wasn't just in a haunted building, he was in her domain, and she wouldn't let him leave alive. Ayaan sprinted down the twisting corridors, his flashlight barely illuminating the warped walls ahead. The bhootni's footsteps echoed silently behind him, but he could feel her presence, cold and relentless, drawing closer with every heartbeat. Doors slammed shut on their own, blocking escape routes, while mirrors along the hallway cracked violently, the shards reflecting distorted images of him and the ghostly woman. He turned the corner and saw old newspapers scattered across the floor. Their yellowed pages revealed the horrifying truth: dozens of people had vanished in this apartment decades ago, never to be found. Panic surged as he realized he was walking in the footsteps of the victims, trapped in a building that existed outside of time. A faint, eerie laugh echoed from behind, a childlike yet menacing sound, growing louder, bouncing off the walls. The bhootni could manipulate the space around him, twisting corridors and rooms in impossible ways, making escape nearly unattainable. His breaths came in ragged gasps as he ran blindly, the building itself warping to keep him inside. Every instinct screamed that if he stopped, even for a second, she would reach him, and this time, there would be no escape. Desperate, Ayaan ducked into a small closet, pressing his back against the wall. The bhootni appeared, her long, clawed fingers creeping through cracks in the walls. Her hollow eyes glowed, and her twisted mouth opened unnaturally wide, letting out a screech that pierced his ears. The air was icy, suffocating, as if it carried the weight of every soul trapped in this apartment. She whispered, "You will stay. Forever." Ayaan noticed the symbols carved into the walls glowing brighter, pulsating with energy. He realized the symbols were not mere decorations, they were a trap. Heart racing, he frantically drew the shapes on the floor with chalk, chanting whatever words instinctively came to mind. The bhootni shrieked in anger and rage, pulling at the very fabric of reality around him. Her hand reached out to grab him, inches away, but the glowing trap began to pull her in. The room shook violently as she screamed, a sound filled with centuries of malice and pain. Ayaan, trembling and gasping, barely managed to stay on his feet, watching the bhootni being sucked into the radiant, magical trap. Exhausted and covered in sweat, Ayaan stumbled out of the apartment into the cold night air. The building behind him seemed to shimmer briefly, then vanish entirely, as though it had never existed. Relief washed over him, but it was fleeting. Days later, he reviewed the photos on his camera, looking for anything unusual. Every shot of the apartment was empty, distorted slightly, but the final photo froze him in horror. Behind him, in the faint glow of his flashlight, the shadowy bhootni stood smiling, her hollow eyes locked on him. Ayaan's chest tightened as the memory of her whispers echoed in his mind, "You will stay. Forever." He realized then that escaping the building didn't mean escaping her. Some spirits don't remain confined, they only wait for their next chance to strike. The story ends with a chilling implication: wherever Ayaan goes, the bhootni is still watching, waiting. He thought he escaped. But some spirits never leave. If you want to see what happens next, and survive more terrifying stories like this, hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell. Remember, some nightmares follow you home.